This is Sweet Lou for HoosierAuthority.com with another Lafayette Jeff living legend, and we're here with Mr. Jim Sharp, head swimming coach for the boys and girls here at Lafayette Jeff High School. And Jim, I really appreciate your time here just to chat a little bit about your longevity here at Lafayette Jeff. We talked off camera that you graduated from Lafayette Jeff High School. What year was that?
1967.
And then we also mentioned off camera, we can talk a little bit about, I was going to ask you regarding wanting to be a swim coach, and you mentioned something about a couple people that influenced you when you were 12 years old that you said, hey, I want to be a swim coach when I grow up. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. I had a coach at Purdue University, Dick Pappenguth, who was the founder of the Lafayette Swim Club, and I started swimming under him when I was 8 years old. And Pappy just kind of took me under his wing, and when I got into high school, swam with Pete Shug, starting his first year in 1963-4. But Pappy still would coach me in the evenings because we had a lousy pool to swim in. Pappy says, you need more. So he brought me over and trained me in the evenings after high school practice from 7 to 9. Then he put me with the Purdue swimmers on Saturdays and Sundays. So I basically swam 7 days a week.
Now, besides those two people influencing you, did you initially knew, like you said, at 12 years old, you basically said, hey, this is what I want to do, what's it take to do it? And, then, of course, you're physical education teacher here. But really, you said off camera, you just like being around water.
I do. And, I screamed bloody murder when my mom and dad tried to get me to swim at age 5. It took 3 years to teach me how to swim, but once I found the joy in it, it's just something that has developed into a passion, and I like being around water, and certainly Pappy and Coach Shug, when I was swimming under him, had a strong influence in my decision to want to be a swim coach. And I can remember my mother asking me when I was 12 years old what I wanted to be, and I said, swim coach. That's what I'm going to do. And, when I got out of college at that time, there weren't a lot of club jobs that could pay you big dollars, where you could live on that, make a living. But that's why I went into education, so I could combine the two, teaching and coaching. But today, you can find jobs out there that are going to pay you $60,000, $70,000 a year for just coaching.
Now, as far as rating yourself, looking back in hindsight, did you consider yourself a pretty good, strong swimmer back then in high school?
Yeah, I finaled every year. Even my freshman year, I was a first alternate in the 100-yard breaststroke as a freshman. And each of my sophomore, junior, and senior years, I finaled in 2 events each year. My senior year, Coach Shug wanted me to swim the 100 back. I had the fastest time in the state, but I wanted to swim the distance freestyle, and I should have listened to my coach, for all those listening. I didn't do it, and I ended up 6th in the 500 free, and my time would have beat the state champ that year. So, it's one of those things you look back on. But swimming at Purdue, my sophomore year, I finaled in five events at the Big Ten Championships.
Now, as far as your success here at Lafayette, Jeff, you said off camera again, 28 years you've been swim coach here. Can you talk a little bit about your success as far as team-wise for your swimming team here at Jeff?
Well, the first year of girls swimming in the IHSAA was 1975, and after being runner-up in the GAA in 1974, we won that first IHSAA-sponsored state championship. And we had a really strong team, and we did so for a couple of years. And then when I left, because there weren't any teaching jobs here, I went to northern Indiana, and unfortunately things just kind of fell apart around here, much to my demise. But I had the opportunity to come back here in the fall of '86, and it's one of those things where you always want to go back to your alma mater and coach, and that's probably the thing that drew me back here, because I took a huge pay cut to come back, because I had a really good coaching job with Valparaiso at the time, and had a lot of great kids, and we were on track to have several kids qualify for the Olympic trials, and when I came back here, fortunately, there was an Allison Bach that just needed a little divine guidance, and I was the lucky guy to give it to her.
Now, something I've always wanted to ask swim coaches, and I asked Roberta Honegger earlier, and you may have a positive feedback on this, but when the Olympics come around every 4 years, after that's over, do you see swim numbers go up as far as participation?
I do. There is always a surge after the Olympic Games because swimming, gymnastics, I think, are the big things that people watch. Unfortunately, gymnastics is kind of going down, but swimming, we see a huge influx of new kids, new bodies, not just in the competitive team at the youth level, but also in our swim lessons. So it's a real positive thing for swimming.
Now, another thing, too, that I think probably influences your sport, and I know Gail Gripe can talk about it, when you look at Delaware County and a lot of the success the teams have had over there, Delta, Muncie Central, and, of course, Muncie Burris, but club ball plays a big part in your sport, as well as what I mentioned, volleyball.
Sure. Club swimming, it really is huge in terms of developing kids, but what we've done here at Lafayette Jeff, Lafayette School Corporation, a couple of years ago when they changed the configuration of the two junior high schools, Sunnyside being a 5-6 school and Tecumseh a 7-8 school, doing away with 2 7th and 2 8th grade basketball teams, for example. They took a lot of opportunities to participate away for kids. So they decided, well, what can we add to get these kids involved? Swimming and diving was one of those activities, and it's been a real blessing in disguise because our numbers, the first year we did the junior high program, we had 110 kids come out. We had about 65 show up and 40 finish the season. Now, this year, we have 140 that have signed up. We may have 100, 110 that show up and may carry 75 to 80 kids. I like to think it's my magnetic personality. But, in doing that program, a lot of teaching involved, a lot of rah-rah, zis, boom, bah, have fun. They show up for practice. Everyone swims in a meet. No one sits the bench, if you will.
Now, as far as your sport, you've been around, like you said, 28 years. Basketball, 4 classes. Baseball, volleyball. You don't foresee in the near future swimming going to classes?
No, I don't. The problem with that, we're fortunate that we have so many high schools that have pools in Indiana, and we also have some of these pools are premier swimming facilities. You have the Purdue Natatorium, the IUPUI Natatorium that's claimed to be one of the fastest pools in the world, and then the IU Natatorium itself. But we have our state meet at IU every year, and it's, you can't tie up a pool like that every weekend, and trying to have class swimming would be, I think, really detrimental to the swimming in a whole in this state. And there are a lot of good swim programs around that it doesn't matter how big your school is. A team like Yorktown, very competitive year in, year out. And they're a small school. So I think it brings a lot of excitement to the sport. The little guy against the big guy. And, we've seen a lot of success stories come out of that.
Now, you talk about excitement. I had the privilege 3 years ago to witness and be at the swimming state finals, and I want to tell you, Jim, it was something that you really can't – you've got to be there. You can't describe it to anybody because I've really never seen – and one of the things that really stood out was the sportsmanship afterwards, because everybody just shook each other's hand or hugged each other or whatever, but the fans really get into it. I know you talk about the breaststroke sport, and you can hear the parents – whistling in the stands for those strokes to go just a little bit faster. Has swimming at the state finals always been that way?
Yes, as long as I can remember. It's just a roar. And, I've seen a lot of great meets, and it goes back a number of years ago. We were down there, and Munster used to have a lot of foreign exchange students on their program, and they won a number of state championships. Well, a few years ago, there was a young man from Crawfordsville, Josh Meixel, and Bloomington South had 3 guys from Puerto Rico that couldn't speak English. They have 1 American guy on the relay team, but they had a young man, can't remember his name right now, but he was a stud. And in the 200 IM, Josh Meixel just stuck right with him. And this guy thought he had the race won. And he came in at the finish, raised his hand like he was number 1. He looked at the clock and, oh my God, he got beat by 1/100th of a second. But what was so neat was all these American flags just came out of the stand. Everybody waving. It was great.
Son of a gun, son of a gun. Well, speaking of the Olympics, have you ever been to, when the Olympics were held here in the United States, been to the Olympic trials or anything?
Yeah, I've been fortunate. I've been to 3 Olympic trials because of Allison. She qualified in all 3, and she actually just missed making the team 3 times. I mean, if she had to be 6th, she was 7th. If she had to be 2nd, she was 3rd. Because they take top 2 in each event plus, an alternate. But, on relays, they take 6 people, and if somebody doubles up and swims more events than what they're capable of, then they'll add people to the team. But Allison came within 5 100ths 3 times in a row. I mean, what do you do? It just wasn't meant to be, but, God love her. She gave it everything she had, and she got a great education, all paid for from Auburn and USC, and can't ask for any more than that. She got to travel the world with the U.S. national team.
Now let's talk a little bit about. I just got a couple other questions here, because I wasn't a real strong swimmer, and I don't know a lot of what goes on in the sport. But obviously, I know how much time you spend here. You spend an awful lot of time year round here at the swimming pool. But take a freshman swimmer. Just swimming every day, or is it weights, or is it technique, or what makes a swimmer get better? Obviously, their body's going to filter out a little bit as they get a little bit older. But what is it that makes a swimmer get better, get stronger, get better times in your estimation, Jim?
It takes a combination of all those things. You got to have the technique, and we work with the younger kids a lot of technique. We don't worry about yardage. But as they grow and develop, we add the strength programs, stretching, flexibility, dry land. And then, of course, they have to be here. I think by age 14, 15, they need to make a commitment if they want to really be good. And we have 60 kids on the team this year. I would say probably 1/3 of them will swim year-round. And that 1/3 are the kids that are really developing into top-level swimmers. I mean, there are some kids that have only been swimming for a couple of years, started at junior high, but because of their work ethic, they are excelling now.
Now, as far as the success around the state, obviously Carmel's had an eye on state championships and all that. Would you say all of you coaches, and again, 28 years, you know a lot of coaches around the Indiana fraternity. Are you guys all basically coaching the same way, or is there can't be some secret or anything to Carmel's success? Is there? It's just hard work. They have the athletes, more numbers. What is it, Jim?
Well, I think part of it plays into it is the economics. Those kids can afford to swim year-round, where a lot of our kids cannot. And, unfortunately, that's the reality of it. Right. I try to do things with our kids where get them lifeguarding jobs, have them teach swim lessons to give them some spending money. And, I do whatever I can to keep them involved in the program so they can get themselves better. But, I say to a lot of people, we do a lot of the things basically the same, but just like any destination, there's a lot of different ways you can go to get to where you want to go. And we all meet in Indianapolis at some point in time. We just go a different direction. And I think when you do that, there's no 100% sure right way to do it. I mean, I've been doing what I've been doing for years. I think sometimes I'm been ahead of my time in what I've done, and other people talk and write books, and I think, I wasn't smart enough to write a book. I just do it. But I have fun doing what I do, and I love the challenge of making that swimmer better, faster, and it's always my goal to get them as high in the state as I can.
And then another thing that I've noticed too, we've talked off camera in or before you, I think a real secret to a good coach, it's kind of like I don't want to mention this in Purdue country, but I will anyway, but I was a Bob Knight fan, and all of his players after they graduated, games after they graduated, they were all still there. They all came back. And I know we've talked before about all the names out here on the board that's had records, but you can just riddle off where these people are at because they're maybe not coming back, but they're keeping in contact with you. So you've had a little bit of influence on some of those people.
Yeah. Well, especially with the Facebook and the Twitter now, it's amazing how you keep up with all the different kids. But, at Christmas time, that is the worst training time of the year because everyone comes back and wants to talk to you. Well, when do they come? During practice. They know that's where I'm going to be. So it's hard. I don't want to discourage people to come back and say hello, but it's hard to really be an effective coach over the holidays because everybody wants to say hello. But I'm really proud of a lot of the kids and where they're at and what they're doing. And like you said, I go right down the record board and rattle off what they're doing, where they're at. And what's really, I guess, heartwarming is when kids come back and say, it's because of you, of what I'm doing now, and I'm being successful. There's nobody that put more emphasis on hard work than what you did, and that's what's getting me to where I'm at.
Well, probably the pinnacle, too, right now, not only having your students that recognize you and come back and want to be close to you and in your involved with your program again is your peers a couple of years ago put you into the Swimming Hall of Fame. How was that, Jim?
That was exciting. It was very flattering to be inducted into that. A lot of my friends were inducted into it. Allison was inducted as a swimmer. There's been a lot of great coaches in this state. And, it was just a real honor to be included in that, first class of inductees. And that's something I'll cherish for all my life.
Well, we really appreciate your time, Jim. Thanks a lot for sitting down and chatting with us. Best of luck the rest of the year. This is Sweet Lou Jeff Luzada for HoosierAuthority.com with another Lafayette Jeff living legend. So long, everyone.